System Thinking in Education with Little Tree, Didem, Koca, Zeynep, Akçay from İzmir, Preschool, Türkiye.
Hello everyone. Can you
Hi.
hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So let me share my screen. Just a moment, please. Just a moment. I will be sharing it right now. Can everybody see my screen all right?
Yes.
Okay. Hello everyone. First of all, my name is Didem Koca. I'm an English teacher at İzmir Preschool. I'm a kindergarten teacher. Today, I'm actually just a translator. This project that I'm going to be talking about was not carried out by me, but it was carried out by Zeynep Akçay, one of our wonderful teachers at our school. She's also present here today as well. Let's start our presentation. Today, we will share an example from our classroom about how we use systems thinking in early childhood education. In this presentation, we will explain how we introduce systems thinking tools through a story-based activity using the book Little Tree. Our aim was to show how young learners can begin to understand patterns, relationships, and change over time through engaging classroom experiences. Before explaining our classroom activity, we would like to briefly mention our school's background with systems thinking. In 2014, Sev Primary School became one of the first institutions in Turkey to receive training from the Water Center for Systems Thinking. At that time, 3 preschool teachers from our school participated in a one-week professional development program focused on systems thinking in education. And since then, systems thinking practices have gradually become a big part of our classroom culture. One of the teachers presenting today here, as I have mentioned before, Zeynep Akçay, has almost more than even 10 years of experience applying systems thinking tools with young learners. This long experience has helped us explore different ways of integrating these ideas into early childhood learning. Systems thinking in the new national curriculum. More recently, systems thinking has also begun to appear in the new national curriculum. The curriculum emphasizes helping students develop seeing relationships and patterns, observing change over time, and understanding cause and effect. Systems thinking tools such as change over time graphs and stock and flow diagrams can support these learning goals. In our classroom, we use these tools in developmentally appropriate ways so that young children can begin to think about how different elements in a system influence each other. One example of this approach is the activity we will now share with you today. So, first of all, within our 3 houses theme, we continue in our classroom system with some themes. In the 3 houses theme, we selected the Little Tree as our culture book. Throughout the theme, we carried out interdisciplinary activities connected to the story. When we were thinking about how to approach the book in the Turkish language section, we observed that systems thinking tools would be very suitable in this book specifically. Therefore, we decided to explore the story using systems thinking strategies. This activity was actually our introduction to systems thinking for the students in our classroom. To help the students become familiar with the tools and the systems thinking in education, we first spent time getting to know the story very well. During that week, in the first week that we started our activity, we read the book several times to our young learners. It is very important that students fully understand and internalize the entire story before creating a graph or stock and flow diagram, whatever you're going to use. When students clearly understand the events and the sequence of the story, they can easily represent the events visually using systems thinking tools. So, after that preparation time, we dedicated a huge time to our first systems thinking lesson, which began with graphing. We introduce systems thinking to the students as a lesson that develops our brains and encourages us to think deeply. We prepared a large graph, as you can see here. We hung it in the classroom. On this graph, the horizontal axis At the bottom, as you can see, it represented the time because the story takes place across different seasons. And the vertical line, the vertical axis, represented the number of the leaf count. Of the leaves on the little tree that I'm going to be describing momentarily. Now, let's briefly explain the story using this graph for those who may not know it. Basically, in this storybook, there was once a little tree living in a forest with its other tree friends. As time passed, autumn arrived and all the trees began to lose their leaves. However, the little tree could not let go of a single leaf. At this point in the graph, the little tree still has 100 leaves, while the other trees' leaves decreases to around 30 leaf count. The other trees are marked in blue here, as you can see, and red on the graph. As the seasons continue to change, the other trees lose all their leaves, and when spring arrives, they grow new leaves again. However, the little tree refuses to let go of its leaf. As a result, while the other trees continue to grow taller and stronger, the little tree cannot grow at all. For our activity here, we only graphed this part of the story. However, later in the story, the little tree finally lets go of its leaves and it also begins to grow. At this point, we asked our students a question. If we had continued the graph, how do you think it would change? Students suggested that eventually the graph would balance out and rise, showing the tree's graph, the tree's growth. We created this graph as a group activity in the classroom, and students came up one by one and made markings on the graph. First, they placed the dots, and once the graph was completed, they connected the points with lines, starting from the intersections of the horizontal and vertical axis. During this process, guiding the students was the most integral part of the classroom. And after completing the graph together as a group, we then gave students individual worksheets, and each student created their own graph. Oh, I'm sorry, independently. This helped reinforce their understanding of how the story changed over time. Now, change over time graph. Let's talk a little bit about this. Later, we place another large visual, as you can see on the screen here. We place another large visual graph along the classroom wall. In the second graph, the variable was the height of the tree, while the horizontal axis still represented the seasons. At the beginning of the story, every tree starts at the same height. When summer arrives, they become saplings. However, while the other trees continue growing, the little tree remains a little sapling because it never lets go of its leaves. This visual graph helps students see the relationship between the tree's choices and its growth over time. Here, as you can see, some photos Ms. Zeynep took during this activity with our students. Let's continue. At the end of the activity, we introduce some systems thinking habits cards, such as some things happen over time. Some things may seem good now, but can lead to problems later. We emphasized that the little tree did not want to let go of its leaves, but this decision eventually prevented it from growing. We printed these cards on PVC and displayed them in different areas of the classroom. During other activities, we referred back to these cards whenever they were relevant. Over time, students began to recognize these habits of thinking and apply them in different situations. Let's continue. Let me pass. Yes, now let's continue with the stock and flow diagram of the little tree story. In our second systems thinking activity, we revisited the story of the little tree and asked the question, what does a tree need in order to grow? Through this discussion, we introduced a stock and flow diagram. We placed a little box in the center with a picture. Oops, I'm so sorry, was it here? We placed a box in the center with a picture of a tree in front of it and asked students to imagine it as a pool. The positive side represented factors that increase the growth of the tree, while the negative side represented the factors that decrease the growth of the tree. And we asked the students, what helps trees grow? We had prepared visual cards showing both positive and negative factors, but we did not show them to the students at first. As students shared their ideas If there was a matching visual card, we place it into the correct area. If students had different ideas, of course, we listen to them as well. And together, sitting on the carpet, we built a stock and flow diagram collaboratively. Afterwards, we distributed worksheets and asked students to draw their own diagrams. Oops, okay, yeah. And if they had additional ideas, they were encouraged to illustrate them as well, of course. Let's continue with the habit card of a stock and flow diagram. Here we connected it with everything is connected. Some things depend on one another, habits card. And just like a tree needs sunlight, water, soil, and many other factors in order to grow, we emphasize that different elements in a system are connected and they influence each other. This helped the students understand that growth does not depend on only one factor, but on many elements working together. And the three dice game to reinforce this understanding in a playful way with our kindergartners. We also created the three dice game. In this game, students roll a dice, as you can see here in the picture, and encounter different conditions that affect the tree's growth, such as receiving sunlight, rain, or facing obstacles that decrease the tree's growth or in any way. Through this activity, students begin to see how different events influence the system over time. Games like this, of course, helps the children experience systems thinking in a concrete and engaging way. Yes, and this is the graph that we created with the three dice game. And through these activities, students were able to explore systems thinking concepts such as change over time, cause and effect, connections within a system, even at an early age, like 4 and 5-year-olds. Children can begin to understand that events are not isolated from each other, but elements influence one another within a system. And this was the project that we carried on. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation with Ms. Zeynep, and I hope I didn't take too much time.
No, it was very good. Thank you, Didem and Zeynep. And we'll have some questions if there are any after the last presentation, okay? Now, there will be a video again, and I will share my screen right now.
Hi everyone, I'm Merve from İzmir, Turkey, and I hope everyone is well. I'm a psychologist and also the director of Beyaz Balon Preschools. And as Beyaz Balon Preschools, we have 4 branches in İzmir. For approximately 4 years, we have been implementing ESD activities with our students here. At the beginning of the process, we had some concerns about how the academic language and ESD could be adapted for preschools children. However, by processing step by step together with our teachers, we were able to make this approach more functional, understandable, and applicable. Today, I'm gonna tell you about behavior over time graph. But before that, I'm gonna start with graph definition and its learning outcomes in preschool period and then behavior over time graph. While integrating system thinking into our schools, we initially started with the attendance graph. However, before explaining how we implemented this tool, I would like to briefly mention the work we conducted with our students regarding graphs independent of ESD. Objectives and learning outcomes of all based on the information presented to the children, understanding graphs, making evolutions, making predictions based on data, developing inference skills, and making abstract information concentrate and recording it. Interpreting relationships between pieces of information and making some predictions, and of course supporting language development and evaluating data in a situation or event. We start with a definition of graph with children. we began by introducing what a graph is. Then we carried out various exercises aligned with our learning units. These activities, integrated into preschool's topics, help children improve their graph creation and interpretation skills. Those who associate it with the word traffic, graphic traffic, those who associate it with the shape, line, rectangle, and we showed them some graphs like month and centigrade for the month. And they create with real materials. They create graphs with real materials, with building towers with wooden blocks or sugar cubes. The tallest one, the shortest tower, or building a tower with mandarin slices. And how many slices are in my mandarin? They graph it. For example, they create graphs using pictures of objects. My favorite fruit graph, for example. They use it for each class, and each object on the graph represents two children. They raise hand and show which fruit is the best for them. And the objective is developing rhythmic counting and mathematical skills. Also, of course, showing the graph. And for example, they use symbols. Arrival and departure graph, students coming by school, some of them with bus or car, on foot, and developing data analysis and evaluation skills here. Also, they use their name and the number of the letters in their name, marking information construct and enable comparison between datasets here, you see. And afterward, our students were introduced to the attendance graph, a systems thinking tool. At the end of the circle time, we counted how many students were present using attendance sticks. And a student marked this number on the graph. Each day, from Monday to Friday, they do this. And on Fridays, we collectively reviewed the weekly graph and discussed increases, decreases, and their possible reasons. This process was an important step in helping children understand how time is represented on the horizontal axis and how it's related to variables before transitioning to behavior over time graph. We continued this practice for one term, the attendance graph, and let's see here how we did with children. Yes, and in the second term, we moved on to behavior over time graphs. Through various storybooks, we conducted group activities to explore how characters change over time, or their feelings, or on the topic. To illustrate this process, I would like to share an example based on the book Tavşancan ile Fare Su. This is a charming illustrated storybook written for children. And main points of the story, Tavşancan finds a big and beautiful balloon and feels very proud of it. However, the balloon accidentally slips away and bursts, which makes Tavşancan very sad. Tavşancan's friend Faresu comes up with an idea to help. And thanks to Faresu's idea, Tavşancan becomes happy again. And the book focuses on values such as friendship, helping one another, sharing, and coping with small challenges. Here, Tavşancan, we of course, for preschool students, pictures are very important because they still don't know how to read. And the story here, you see the pictures of the happenings. And here Tavşancan finds a big and beautiful balloon and feels very proud of it in the story. However, the balloon slips away and bursts, which makes Tavşancan very sad. And Tavşancan's friends Faresu comes with an idea to help. And thanks to Faresu, Tavşancan becomes happy again and they poof the balloon and play together and happy. Together with the students, we explored the story in class, supported by visuals. On the vertical axis, we placed the emotions, happy and sad. The children identified the characters' feelings throughout the story and marked them on the graph with group. During the discussion, different interpretations emerged. Of course, it was particularly interesting to observe how the same events were perceived differently by different students. This demonstrated that children were able to establish connections between events and emotions. After the group work, students created their own individual graphs. This allowed each child to interpret the characters' emotional changes from their own perspective. They then compared their graphs with those of their peers, observing similarities and differences. And as a result of these practices, we all observed that our students not only became familiar with system thinking, but also improved their graph reading and interpretation skills. Although they initially faced some challenges, it was very rewarding to see them develop different perspectives and reflect these in their graphs over time. We experienced that systems thinking can be effectively implemented in early childhood when supported with appropriate tools and simplified language. The most valuable outcome of this process was seeing children move beyond seeking a single correct answer and being expressing diverse perspectives. And we have many other storybooks, and in this term we are also trying them to improve their perspectives with this story. And thanks for your attendance and listening. If you have any questions, also you can ask me through this email. Goodbye.
Okay. We also thank to Merve. And now we can have some questions or comments for these presentations. Amy? Amy,
Hello.
hi.
I just have a quick question for
Didem,
this last presentation. How do you wait, do the children when they start graphing on their own, do they have a hard time placing the X, like coordinating where to place the X? Because you have to match the picture of the plot from the bottom axis and the feeling of the rabbit on the vertical axis. Because I found it sometimes it's really hard unless you like practice it over and over again. They have a hard time finding where to put the X. They'll want to draw a line all the way up top instead of just actually making an X. I didn't know if you had experience troubleshooting that.
your question is for the video or the first?
The late Merve, who just presented.
Filiz, are you here?
Yes.
Maybe you
I'm
can answer. Okay.
first, but she sent a video. But I know that application.
Oh, she sent a video. Okay.
Yes. For the children at the beginning, I think the teacher guides them. They choose the point together. It depends on the level of children's knowledge, I think. It's getting better. Children can choose that point for herself. It needs a time, I think. I'm not teacher. I just know the knowledge from the teachers. But they say in general in this way.
Maybe Evrim or Özgün can comment.
I can say the same thing. It needs time because at first, of course, they can't do that without any help. But after using it many times, after getting the idea, of course, they will do something wrong, but it's okay. So it needs patience and time.
Okay, thank you. So now we have only 2 minutes to go to the main room. We thank you all for the presentations and also the contributions. See you next year, probably. Okay. Bye-bye.